Bear's got to go.
I only got one question for you.
Okay.
Where the hell you been?
Well, the one thing that would be more important than me actually being here with them would be recruiting players to replace them.
Well,
And we've had a bunch of them here today, and so I've been visiting with some families and those guys. But now I'm looking forward to being out here with the team.
is this just like spring visits, like unofficial visit, people just
Sure.
that kind of stuff?
What-
That's what goes on this time of year.
What used to take place in December and January years ago now takes place in the spring. And what's surprising is the number of young men that we get from not only Texas, but Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, South Carolina, Florida. And they have people that take them around and show them schools and such so they can make a decision in the summer instead of running into the fall of their senior season.
When you say they have people, somebody besides their family?
Sometimes family, or most of the time family, sometimes coaches. Could be somebody in the community that's involved with the church that will get a van and grab 3 or 4 of them in the immediate area. We had a group pass through last week that best illustration would be somebody got a van and grabbed 2 or 3 from Carl Albert, 2 or 3 from Del City, 2 or 3 from Midwest City, 2 or 3 from Choctaw, and brought them up. And so it's changed considerably. We spend quite a bit of time during this time of year recruiting like we used to in the fall.
One thing about, and I know you can't comment about the fifth-year graduate news, but one thing in talking to a couple of those kids, players are honest. When a kid comes in to recruit and you assign a player to show them around, they're going to tell them like it really is. I mean, you always thought maybe they'd fudge and say, hey, it's a great place, come here. But kids don't do that to each other.
We have 2 things. The first thing is we ask them to visit with as many current players as they can because they're the best source of information because they live this every day. Second thing is we're not, and the players probably aren't smart enough to program them into saying what we want them to say. And so they're gonna tell it like it is, and we've always felt like that we provide the very best. Our culture here at Oklahoma State provides the best opportunity for a young man in the big picture, and so for that reason we've been successful in bringing 5th-year players in here.
Mike, it doesn't seem like you have a ton of questions on offense, but second-string quarterback would be one of them. Do you have a timetable? Do you have a sense of getting the second guy named in the spring, or where are you?
We've cut Mason's reps back considerably and added more to Woodt's. We have a good idea what we have with Taylor. We're thrilled that he's here. He hasn't had as much, or Woodty hasn't had as much work, so we've given more to Woodty and more to Kolar. And then the issue we have is total number of reps before 2 weeks out of our first game, because from that point on you're more in just a training session. And so maybe the next question would be, has anybody emerged as the number 2 guy? Not right now. We don't feel like that we can make that. I was hoping at the end of spring ball we could. We just feel like that they're doing really well and they bring a little something different to the table, and we're not ready to do that. But we certainly have to do that halfway through fall camp because there's just not enough reps to go around.
Here at the end of spring, are you gaining, and I know last week you said you'd like to see the defense win every day, but are you gaining more and more confidence in the defense toward the end of spring, the way they played over the last week or so?
I like the speed we have on defense. We had this a few years ago, and it provided us with a lot of turnovers. I think we can play that role. We're young at the corner position. Ramon was an experienced player that we moved to safety because we think it really adds a lot to our defense. But we need young corners to play well earlier than what they would traditionally play well in order for us to have the type of year that we hope we can have.
Coach, on the offensive side of the ball, what's the biggest thing you're looking forward to watching for on Saturday?
Well, really on both sides. We've limited our game plan because when you split teams up, you're going to be fairly youthful on both teams, and we want a good, clean game. So we'll be vanilla on defense and offense. So that way we don't have as much thinking as we do guys out there playing. And what I had shared with them is we want them to be able to play hard. We want them to have fun. We want to give the fans a good show. Last year we were at 90 plays. I don't know that we have the manpower this year because we have a few guys that are sitting out to get that many, but I would certainly like to have 70 plays for the fans. Then they get a pretty good feel for some of the new guys that we have. Rudolph will only go a couple series. We'll get the other quarterbacks in there, and the same at other positions. So in all three phases, we want it to be a clean game to where the fans can see some of the newer players and get excited about the upcoming season.
You mentioned the newer players. Two guys I know a lot of fans are interested in seeing, Woodty and Johnson, both Louisiana guys. It seems like you've had continued the momentum with those Louisiana players, even without Eric Henderson on staff.
We've had real success in East Texas, and what we found is you go on out a little further east into that northern West Louisiana, and it's really the same kind of people. They fit good in our culture here. They're comfortable here. Because we've had success, then word gets out. Obviously with technology today, players in that area see other players that are having success here, and so we become one of the schools they're interested in. The marketing value of that is through the roof, and so we like recruiting that area. It's easy for us to get to, and the people there have become accustomed to us and are familiar with Big 12 football.
You mentioned Woodty at length throughout the spring, but what's the one thing that you feel he does best at this point in his career?
Well, he can make plays. When something breaks down, he moves around well. He has good football savvy. Coach Yursich feels like that he could be further along mentally at the position he's playing than anybody we've had here. I don't go into meetings enough to back that up, but obviously Mike wouldn't bring that up if he didn't feel that way. And so at this point in his career, he's really far along mentally, and he has the ability to make a play when it breaks down, and we all know that one out of every 4 plays breaks down in college football, and quarterbacks that can make a play generally are more valuable.
One interesting concept, you've got your booth coaches, both coordinators are up there, and from what I understand talking to them, Mike Yursich will call the offense for the orange and the black, and Glenn will call the defense for the orange and the black. It's not in the same booth. They mentioned they'll be in different booths.
Well, they'll be close, but when we have our thud scrimmages, they're both up there.
Yeah.
And 2 scrimmages ago, Glenn got upset and left, threw his headset down, and he came down to get after the defense. And the last one, Henson, threw his headset down, he came down to get after his guys. So it's fairly entertaining for me to listen to them yell at their guys from up there, because they can't hear them anyway because of the music, and they still just yell. It makes them feel better, I guess. So it's a lot of fun, and we're to the point in spring ball that the defense has a little bit of an advantage. They know everything. They know the calls. They know a lot about what's going on. And when you start spring, offense has an advantage. But we've had a really good 13 practices, because we've got a lot of work with the young people that need the quality work, and try to improve things that'll set us up for August.
Mike, if we're not going to see a ton of Mason on Saturday, you've obviously seen a lot more of him this spring. What have you been most impressed by? Is there a nuance or something that he's done that maybe is a new wrinkle to his skill at this point?
He's continued to get a little more mobile every year. He's lean. He was thin last year for what he had been early in his career, and physically he looks even better now. And he has a better grasp of what we do. A couple times this spring, get him a little bit in a jam because he tries to do too much instead of just let the game take place. But overall, just his grasp of our offense continues to get better each year.
Can you talk about the wide receiver group, how the depth, with Washington coming back and Aiden back again?
We have a lot of guys, and Tyron Johnson's making a lot of plays. Dylan Stoner's back out here now, and we have a lot of guys that can make plays. We don't have enough footballs to go around. Fortunately for us, they're really good young men. They understand, and mean, I can really see guys like James Washington only playing 40 plays a game and putting the other guys in and playing and keeping them fresh. You know, there were times last year when James was fatigued late in the games. I don't see that happening this year. I see enough guys to just continue to rotate through and allow us the opportunity to play really fast.
Robert brought up in the beginning about players recruiting grad transfers. Any sort of formula on which guys you pair with which players and how you go about that?
Geographic background is important, and position has generally been important. And then the last thing would be if we have a guy that's come in that was from a 2-year college, or like Tyron, which is transferred in here from another school, a lot of times we'll let them get with them because it's a similar move. I mean, it's you're coming into a new culture, and a lot has to happen in a short amount of time for a 5th-year guy to adjust and play and have success. He only has 2 months to get used to what we do. So we will pair them up with those guys that we think kind of fit the needs, and maybe if they have a similar background to where they came from.
Do you think having had other guys come in and be successful in that role that kind of attracts more
No question.
transfers?
Sure. They know, they've done their research. These young men that come in and show interest as 5th-year transfers, they know everything. They're smart. They're college graduates. They've done their research. They know this is their last year. They're going wherever they think they can fit in for what they're looking for. Some young men have been in a program that haven't had as much success in the win column, so they want to win, want to go to a bowl. Some maybe have been somewhere and been injured and now aren't the full-time starter. They want to go somewhere where they think they can be a full-time starter. It's a completely different world in so-called recruiting them than a high school player, because they know and they understand. They know exactly what they're looking for.
I saw you finally got to talk to Mike Boynton. Was that a good visit?
Sure, I had a good visit with Coach, and he and I spent quite a bit of time together, and some of it they videoed, and I guess some of it they didn't, and so I enjoyed that time getting to know him, and I knew quite a bit about him. Once I found out he was the coach, I did a little research on him just to be aware of his background, and so I was excited about spending the time with him, and wished him the best. He hasn't been here. He's been on the road recruiting for the most of the last, I guess, maybe it's been a month, however long, I don't know how long he's been hired. So.
Coach, I remember last spring when the OSU tennis team was making the run to the national championship, you were pretty vocal on Twitter and supported them. Big senior day this week with Bedlam. Do you have any message for Coach Young and the team?
Well, they've been great. The sports here, all the sports in the spring. We have really quality coaches and good people, and they've got Bedlam Tennis. Is it Friday? I think it's coming up Friday, and he's got a squad with a lot of seniors, veteran players, and so obviously it's a great day for them and a time that they look forward to. And I know we've had good crowds. They've got a group that show up there and watch them and support them, and I think that's awesome. And wish them the best.
A couple of years ago, you didn't even have enough players to hold the spring game. Just what's changed since then, and how talk about the growth.
We went through a transition a few years ago in offensive line where we had serious numbers issues, and wouldn't allow us to really do much in the spring. And then sometimes in the spring, if you get enough players that are and have had something repaired from the fall to get ready for the summer, you fall in this category. We've been fortunate that we didn't have as many guys that had to get repairs based on the season before, and we've stayed fairly healthy in the spring. But we have 4 defensive ends. Okay, so you got 2 on each side. So you hope that nobody gets dinged, because then you got to yank the shirt off somebody else and put one on there. But as the roster split up that we'll put out in the morning, we should be okay numbers-wise. And in order to accommodate the fans and our team, we went to 10-minute quarters instead of just a running clock, so it's more like a game. because of our offense, we can't get into a situation where we run 120, 150 plays. Because it's one team, so we don't have the numbers for that. So we went to 10-minute quarters, and we think that will allow the flow of the game to be normal, to where the fans will enjoy and the players can have some fun.